When talking to horror video game or film fans, there's often a common thread of that one moment, the exact point where pants were put on an emergency cleaning list, where we dropped our controller in fear or disgust, and of course when we deafened those around us with ear-piercing screams. A video game absolutely playing us like this and eliciting that true feeling of terror can happen to even the hardiest of horror fans. And it's ironically what we look for in these types of games, as we want to be tricked and then floored by games posing as horror experiences. Now, while horror, as with comedy, is subjective, there are a few universal moments that simply cannot be denied when it comes to generation of fear within its audience, and this list aims to collect all of the best for you today. So with this in mind, I'm Jules, this is WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 exact moments that made you scream in horror video games. Number 10. Body in a locker. Condemned. As you progress through the narrative of Condemned, one thing becomes crystal clear, that the torturer, this title's antagonist, is anything but a nice person. Time and again we are witness to their horrible crimes, and it builds in a sense of terrible expectation as to what we might witness next. On top of this are the jump scares that are around nearly every corner, and a threatening sense of dread that now permeates every area. However, one of the most infamous and trouser-browningly horrible moments comes when the player uncovers the body of Samuel Tibbets. Now, Tibbets was a PE teacher who was cut almost to pieces by the torturer before having his arm ripped off. In an attempt to hide from him, Samuel placed himself inside a locker, which is where we find him. Having to examine this moment in detail is terrifying enough as it displays the work of the torturer up close, but things immediately dial themselves up to 11 when it becomes clear that Tibbets is still alive. The jump scare and panic to save him result in one of the most memorable moments of the entire game, and it's not a sight that we ever wanted to see. Number 9. The Special Infected, Left 4 Dead 1 and 2. Now, genuinely, you might not even have enough time for fear to sink in throughout your time with Left 4 Dead 1 and 2, because instead, you'll be screaming to your friends and frantically shoving and shooting away hordes of infected on an adrenaline rush that is unlike anything else. However, when the game offers up quieter moments, or the AI director has just gone on lunch for a bit, you may well hear rumblings in the dark that you really wish you hadn't. From the sickening chokes of a smoker through to the predatory hisses of a hunter, the Special Infected are here to make your life a misery, and the telltale audio cues of their arrival is sure to send shivers down your spine and a scream of terror rise from your gullet. Yet it's likely to be a short-lived yelp, as these top-tier terrors will pounce from the dark, spew sick all over you after hiding around a corner, or even just burst through a wall in order to absolutely batter you. Whoever or whatever it is that's doling out the pain, you can be sure that it's going to cause your entire party to collapse in an overwhelming terror each and every time. Number 8. Jack Baker's entrance, Resident Evil 7. Now, originally this was actually a toss-up between Nemesis bursting through the wall of Jill's apartment in the Resident Evil 3 remake, or the dog leaping through the windows in Resident Evil 1 as my Resi entry for biggest and baddest entrance. But after recently revisiting Resident Evil 7, I'll have to admit that even though I knew it was coming, Jack Baker makes one hell of an impact when he comes crashing right through the bloody walls. He might be a character better known for his iconic line of "Welcome to the family, son," but he's now also so infamous for his Kool-Aid guy impersonation, which sees him smash through the wall and chase after the player. This moment is perfectly choreographed, as it's never implicitly stated what Jack can and can't do, and when the player thinks that they've given him the slip, it can be easy to imagine them falling into a false sense of security. They'll be saying stuff like, "Take that, Jack, you idiot," which might actually well be the last words that they utter before screaming as their hopes of escape and the very walls themselves come crashing down around you. Number 7. The reveal of the Xenomorph, Alien Isolation. Expectations were set pretty high when Alien Isolation was announced. Instead of following, let's just call them other failed attempts, Sega was looking to do away with the gunplay focus and instead dial up the sheer terror that oozed from the original films. How they managed to do that was at once brilliantly complex and at the same time utterly simple. They programmed some of the fiercest AI ever in the form of the Xenomorph's twin brain director, which is basically where one side of the brain controlled the body but didn't know where the player was, and the other side knew where we were but could only give hints to the body. And then it coupled this with giving the player a radar that told them exactly how close this horrifying beast was to turning us inside out. The sheer terror of seeing this monster slide out of a ceiling vent or suddenly round a corner ahead of us would make even the most stalwart of spacefarers scream out loud, but nothing compares to seeing it for the first time, as it drops from the ceiling with a massive thud, enveloped in steam, and it's a moment that's made all the worse when it drags its massive bladed tail across the floor mere inches from you. No thank you, please. I'm good. Number 6. Haunted House, House Flipper. Now, at first, it might seem like a truly odd entry on this list, seeing as House Flipper is by no means a horror video game. However, thanks to a piece of free DLC, the devs of this game turned their title into an absolute fright fest. Now, normally the aim of the game is to redecorate houses and sell them for profit. It's tame, relaxed, and at no point does one have to worry about their heads becoming semi-detached from their body. The Haunted House, however, changes this by having the entire living space covered in blood, having eerie sounds permeate through the house, and showing terrifying visions of what appears to be a murder that took place before, and there's even an exhumed coffin in the backyard. Needless to say, this would cause even the most rock-steady of realtors to let out a shriek or two, as it's not just a bit of mold and a few new door handles that you need to take care of here. This is something genuinely terrifying in a game that never marketed itself as anything other than chilled. Imagine if you picked this level by accident. Number 5. Holding Your Breath, Detention. Detention is an utterly brilliant indie horror title that utilizes a mechanic of holding your breath in order to bypass the terrifying monsters that roam the corridors of this abandoned school. Thanks to its charming art style and close links to Taiwanese mythology, Detention never fails to keep the suspense high throughout its runtime. However, the moments in which you might come face to face with these will have you screaming your lungs out while ironically hoping that your character can actually hold their breath. In order to escape unscathed, you need to avoid eye contact with some of these enemies and hold a button to likewise hold your breath. This is obviously not something that you can do forever, and watching the enemies lean in to listen for the slightest gasp of air is genuinely one of the most terrifying things I've experienced. Second only, that is, to mistiming the button press and witnessing the horrible executions that follow, something that will definitely elicit a terrified yelp each and every time. Number 4. Grabbing the Flashlight, Half-Life Alyx. While some people might not class the Half-Life series as falling into the horror genre, there is no doubt that the VR masterpiece that is Half-Life Alyx is most definitely worthy of this classification thanks to its intense and visceral jump scares and rather ominous atmosphere. This can be best summed up with the moment that Alyx finds need of a flashlight while exploring some dark and foreboding underground sections. Now, traversing through these sections without ample light is enough to set the heart racing, and there's a genuine sense of relief when you finally stumble across a flashlight hanging from a corpse. However, nothing in this game comes for free, and as you step back and take a closer look at the mutilated body, you suddenly start to hear the skittering of limbs across the floor. Turning around and witnessing a mass of head crabs swarming the area may well cause you to drop your gun, even more so when the head crabs launch themselves at you from the abyss. It is one of the most effective and horrifying VR moments ever, simply crafted but brilliantly executed. Number 3. The Dentist's Office, BioShock. It's easy to forget when you're roaming around the sodden halls of Rapture, tooled up to the nines and wielding the power to electrocute or burn your enemies to death, but at its heart, BioShock is a true and deep blue horror title. Designed as a point-and-click adventure at one point in time, the game was atmosphere first and gunplay second, and that is definitely clear when the team were experimenting wherever they could to invoke that truly delicious fear. Damp, leaky, claustrophobic environments, terrifying and malformed enemies, and of course, the infamous dentist room jump scare. All of this were designed to make you also spring a leak. As you enter this room, you'll see a mist envelop the screen and you'll hear the ragged footsteps of something unseen dashing around you. As the gas fades, you might be surprised to see a dead body now on a gurney where before there was none. But this, my friend, is just the beginning. For if you round the corner and attempt to pick up a lovely luminous tonic that's just sitting there on a desk, the mist once again draws in on you. This time, though, when you recover, nothing seems to have changed. Nothing, that is, at all, apart from the thuggish splicer right behind you who will brain you the moment you turn and spot him. Genuinely screamed my head off at this, and I loved it all the more for it. Number 2. The first 10 minutes of Outlast. Now, it might seem like a stretch to put the entire opening section of this game as a moment, but if you've ever played the outstanding Outlast, you'll know that it's more than a little justified. Arriving on the scene in order to investigate spooky goings-on in a psychiatric hospital, Miles and his trusty night vision camera have no idea what they are about to get themselves into. And while some horror video games like to ease players in with teases of the little terrors that await them, Outlast hits the ground running with horror after horror. In one section alone, you drop from a vent and proceed down a corridor. Opening another door incites an immediate jump scare as a body drops from the ceiling screaming in agony. The music shoots up and Miles' heavy breathing is front and center. Rounding some bookcases in the same room, we spy a man impaled on a spike. Assuming he's dead, we edge by him, only for him to reach out and try to grab us. The double whammy of adrenaline-fueled fright then gives way to an utterly terrifying moment as just as we were about to catch our breath and squeeze through this gap, Chris Walker, aka Fear Factory of Flab over here, grabs Miles and throws him through a bloody window. In short, it is horrifying. And number 1, run. He is right behind you. 3D Monster Maze. As one of the earliest examples of a horror video game, it might be assumed that 3D Monster Maze has little to offer in terms of genuine frights. However, you'd be wrong. Dead wrong. If you've played this charming piece of nostalgia, you'll know the sheer terror of reading the words, "Run, he is right behind you." Now, the premise of this game is that you're locked in a maze with a T-Rex and you must solve this labyrinth without getting eaten. In order to make the game fair, text updates alert the player as to the state of the T-Rex, namely whether he's lost track of you, is close, or indeed is about to munch on your trainers. Seeing this alert sends absolute panic through you, as now you're not only running to get away from being eaten alive, but you're praying that you won't fall foul of a dead end. For if you do, there's nothing left but to look death in the eyes and meet your maker. Grim. And there we go, my friends. Those were 10 exact moments that made you scream in horror video games. I hope that you enjoyed that, my friends, and please let me know what you thought about it down in the comments section below. If you want to chat to me further about all things to do with horror video games, TV, film, wrestling, whatever else, you can do so over on Twitter at RetroJ0, or you can swing by Live and Let's Dice, it's my personal gaming channel where I stream every Wednesday and Sunday. Would love to see you over there. But before I go, I just want to say one thing. We detailed today about video games that made you scream in horror, but you know what, my friends? I'm going to scream some positivity at you today, because this is the thing. I hope that you are well. I hope that you're treating yourself fairly, both mentally and physically, because you, yes, you listening to this video deserve love, happiness, and success. I wish nothing but the best for you, and if you are struggling to achieve those tenets, then remember, you are not alone. We all go through tough times, and with the help of other people, we can get through these difficult bits ahead. So embrace your friends, tell your family that you love them, and reach out for help if you need it. Now go out there and smash it, you big ledge. As always, I've been Jules, you have been awesome. Never forget that, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.